The first fire fell from the sky without warning. It tore through the clouds above Earth's colony world of Helios, a burning spear of light that split the capital in half. Towers of steel melted, streets turned into rivers of fire, and voices filled the comms with screams. The aliens had come without mercy. They were called the Korath Empire, rulers of 1,000 stars. For centuries they had conquered, enslaved, and burned. But until now they had ignored humanity, considering them too small, too weak to matter. That changed when humans expanded deeper into space, building colonies on worlds the Korath claimed as their own. The answer of the Empire was not diplomacy. It was fire. On Helios, Captain Mara stood among the ruins, her boots sinking into ash. Smoke curled around her as the horizon glowed with burning cities. She could hear distant gunfire, the last soldiers fighting a hopeless battle. Above her, the sky boiled with alien warships, black, sharp, and merciless. Each one rained destruction with casual ease. Her comms crackled. "This is Helios Command," a voice said, broken and weak. "Resistance collapsing. Evacuation impossible. God help us all." The signal died in static. Mara clenched her fists. She had trained for war, but nothing had prepared her for this. The aliens were not fighting an enemy. They were exterminating a species. On Earth, leaders watched in horror as reports came in. Colony after colony burned. Outposts in distant systems were erased in minutes. Millions of lives vanished in fire. The Korath sent only one message. Humans trespassed. For this, they will suffer. Some wanted to surrender, to beg for mercy. Others shouted for war. But most of all, there was silence. The silence of shock, the silence of people who had never seen such cruelty. In the ruins of Helios, Mara gathered survivors in the shattered shell of a bunker. Faces covered in soot and blood looked to her for answers. "What do we do?" a young soldier whispered. "We're finished. No one can fight this." Mara's eyes burned with fury. She stood tall, even though her body trembled with exhaustion. "They think they've won," she said. "They think we'll bow, that this is the end. But I tell you this is only the beginning. If they've brought us fire, then we will answer with something far worse." Her words spread through the survivors like sparks. For the first time since the sky had burned, people lifted their heads. But even as hope flickered, more fire rained down. A Korath dreadnought descended, its massive shadow blotting out the stars. Its cannons glowed with power, ready to erase the last human resistance. Mara raised her weapon, knowing it would make no difference. Around her, soldiers stood, weapons trembling in their hands. They were outmatched, outgunned, but they refused to kneel. The dreadnought fired. The ground split open as shockwaves ripped across the bunker. The world shook, screams echoed, dust filled the air, and then silence. When the smoke cleared, half the bunker was gone. Dozens lay dead. But Mara still stood, her face blackened with ash, her voice hoarse but strong. "Remember this day," she told the survivors. "Remember what they did. One day we will answer. And when we do, the galaxy will never forget." Far across space, in the chambers of the Korath Empire, the alien lords celebrated. On towering thrones, they laughed at the weakness of humanity. To them, this was not war. It was cleansing. A race too bold had reached too far, and now they were being taught their place. One general raised a glass of dark liquid and spoke, his voice carrying across the hall. "Humans call this hell," he sneered. "Then let us give them more." The room erupted with cruel laughter. But beyond their arrogance, they could not see the truth. Every act of fire, every city burned, every colony destroyed, was not breaking humanity. It was forging them. On Earth, in hidden bunkers, scientists whispered about weapons long thought too dangerous to use. In military hangars, engineers worked on ships designed not for exploration, but for vengeance. And in the hearts of every survivor, a flame was lit, not of fear, not of despair, but of rage. Mara stared at the stars, her eyes reflecting the burning sky. Around her, the last survivors prepared for evacuation, cramming into damaged shuttles. As the engines roared to life, she whispered to herself, "They brought us fire. Let them see what comes after fire." The shuttles lifted, streaking toward the void. Behind them, Helios burned, a world turned to ash. The war had begun. Humanity was wounded, scarred, but not broken. The Korath believed they had shown humans hell, but soon they would learn the truth. Hell was only the beginning. The news spread across every human world like poison. Helios was gone. Dozens of colonies had been burned. Millions were dead. The Korath Empire had promised humanity punishment, and they had delivered it with fire. But in the ashes, something was changing. On Earth, the skies were filled with silence. Cities stood, in mourning, black flags rising above towers. In the streets, people whispered, their voices sharp with anger. Humanity had been humiliated but not broken. In the underground bunkers of the United Earth Council, leaders gathered in secret. The room was dark, the air heavy with smoke and fear. Holograms flickered above the table, showing burning colonies and endless lists of the dead. One senator spoke, her voice trembling. "We cannot win against them. Their fleets are endless. Their weapons tear through our ships like paper. Surrender may be the only way." Silence followed, heavy and suffocating. Then, Admiral Rain stood. His uniform was torn, his eyes hollow from nights without sleep, but his voice was steel. "Surrender," he said, his words cutting through the air. "They brought hell to our worlds. They killed our families, and you would kneel?" No one answered. Rain slammed his fist on the table. "Then listen to me. Humanity has never surrendered. Not to empires, not to tyrants, not even to the void itself. If the Korath want a war, then by God we will give them one, and we will make them regret ever hearing the word human." Whispers grew in the dark. Plans were drawn. Hidden projects were unlocked. Blueprints too dangerous, too cruel to be used in times of peace. Engineers spoke of Project Revenant, a fleet designed in secret decades ago. Weapons that bent physics, ships that could slip through shadows, torpedoes that shattered shields like glass. They had been buried, locked away because humanity had sworn never to become monsters. But now the Korath had shown them fire. And so humanity would answer. Across the Sol system, the storm began to gather. On Luna's dark side, factories thundered day and night, producing warships that gleamed black against the stars. On Mars, miners melted ore into steel for weapons humanity had never dared to build. In the shipyards of Titan, enormous vessels were born. Silent giants forged in secrecy, bristling with weapons hidden behind armored plates. Scientists worked without sleep, driven by grief and rage. They designed railguns that fired at near light speed, missiles guided by AIs that thought faster than any alien commander, and cloaking fields that swallowed ships into darkness. And in the training camps of Earth, new soldiers marched. Men and women who had lost families, homes, everything. They trained with fire in their eyes. They were not soldiers of defense anymore. They were soldiers of vengeance. But even as humanity prepared, the Korath continued their war. On the queer colony world of Vera, another city burned. Alien soldiers marched through streets, dragging survivors in chains. Their commanders laughed, boasting that humans were insects, broken and weak. Among the prisoners, whispers spread. Earth is building something. Earth will strike back. The Korath dismissed it as desperation, but fear had begun to creep into their ranks. In orbit above Earth, Admiral Rains walked the deck of the Resolute-class flagship, the first of the new fleet. The ship was massive, almost monstrous, its hull layered with armor and bristling with hidden cannons. Its engines glowed with power no alien had ever seen. "This is not just a ship," Rains told his officers. "This is humanity's answer. They brought us fire. We will bring them storms." On the outer rim, survivors like Captain Mara, rescued from Helios, were placed into command of these new weapons. She had lost her world, but now she carried its fury in her veins. When she stepped onto the bridge of her new warship, she whispered the words she had promised her people. They gave us hell. Now we'll show them worse. Her crew saluted, their faces grim, ready. The galaxy began to stir. Alien merchants spoke of strange human activity in the Sol system. Spies reported entire moons turned into factories. Whispers of Project Revenant reached the ears of the Korath Empire. At first, the alien lords laughed. What can they build? They mocked. They are children playing with fire. But in their private chambers, unease spread. Because, deep down they knew, no species fought harder than one with nothing left to lose. The storm gathered, silent but unstoppable. Humanity had been broken, burned, humiliated. But in the ashes, they were reforging themselves into something far deadlier. And when the storm finally broke, the Korath would understand. They had not destroyed humanity. They had unleashed it. The Korath Empire believed humanity broken. They burned Helios, crushed Vera, and left scars across dozens of colonies. To them, humans were dust, insignificant, weak, finished. But then the storm came. It began in the Vega system. 3 Korath warships patrolled the orbit of a mining world. Their commanders relaxed, laughing at reports of human resistance. They had heard whispers of a new fleet, but they did not believe them. Then the shadows moved. A dark shape slid from the void, so black it seemed carved from night itself. The ship's engines did not roar. They whispered, silent and deadly. Its weapons stayed hidden until the very last moment. By the time the Korath realized what they faced, it was already too late. Railguns fired, slugs moving faster than thought. Shields collapsed in seconds, armor ripped apart like paper. One warship exploded, then the second, then the third. The human vessel vanished again into the dark, leaving only wreckage and silence. Across the galaxy, the same story repeated. Korath. Fleets entered systems with confidence but never returned. Spaceports filled with whispers. The humans are coming. Merchants told tales of ships that struck like lightning and disappeared. For the first time in centuries, fear spread, not among humans but among the Empire itself. On Earth, Admiral Rains stood before the holomap of the galaxy. Red markers showed alien strongholds. Blue lights showed human fleets, each moving, like a knife through the stars. He spoke to his commanders. They brought us fire. We answer with storms. Do not fight by their rules. Strike where they are weak. Leave nothing but silence in your wake. His officers saluted. Each one carried the same fury. Each one had lost someone to the Korath. They needed no more orders. Captain Mara led one of the first counterstrikes. Her ship, the Iron Vow, drifted silent at the edge of the Zera system. Ahead of her, a massive Korath supply convoy moved slowly, carrying weapons and fuel to the front lines. Her crew waited, tense. Soldiers gripped their stations, breaths sharp in the cold silence. Mara stood at the front, her voice steady. They think they've brought us to our knees, she said. But today, we remind them who we are. She gave the order. The Iron Vow lunged forward, weapons blazing. Railguns tore through the convoy's escorts. Missiles streaked through the void, detonating fuel tanks into blazing fireballs. The entire convoy became a storm of flame. The Korath screamed into the comms for help, but no help came. When the battle ended, Mara's voice echoed across open channels, her words cold and sharp. Humanity does not bow. You brought us hell. We will bring you worse. The message spread. On distant Korath colonies, civilians trembled. On their capital world, the lords of the Empire shouted for stronger fleets, greater firepower. But no matter how many ships they sent, the humans always struck where least expected. Soon, whole sectors began to fall silent, not because the Korath had conquered them, but because humanity had taken them back. Mining worlds once lost were free again. Colonies once burning now rebuilt under human banners. Survivors who thought all hope was gone now saw human warships arrive, carrying vengeance and protection. But with every victory, the Korath's fury grew. In the Emperor's golden throne room, word of defeat after defeat reached his ears. His hands clenched on the arms of his throne, his voice thunderous. 1 ship is a nuisance. 10 ships are a threat, but fleets of humans tearing through my empire. This is rebellion. His generals bowed, trembling. Then crush them, the Emperor commanded. Send everything. Let the humans see what true war looks like. And so the Empire prepared its greatest fleet, a force not seen in generations. Back aboard the Iron Vow, Mara received intelligence of the coming armada. Her crew listened in silence as the report finished. Hundreds of ships, her officer whispered. More than we can count. All heading our way. Mara stood calm, her eyes sharp with fire. Good, she said. They wanted to see what humans could do. Let them come, we'll show them something far worse. Her crew tightened their grips on the consoles. Fear was there, but behind it rage burned brighter. The galaxy was no longer laughing at humanity. Now it whispered their name in fear, and as the storm gathered, one truth became clear. Humanity was done surviving. Now, humanity was hunting. The Korath Empire had ruled for centuries without challenge. Their name alone was enough to silence rebellions. But now, the whispers had changed. Across alien marketplaces, in crowded stations, and even in the halls of noble courts. The same. Story spread. The humans are coming. In the glittering capital of Teralis, the Senate gathered in panic. The grand chamber, once filled with arrogance and laughter, now echoed with fear. Holograms of destroyed fleets burned above them, red markers spreading across the galactic map. One senator slammed his clawed hand against the table. This is madness. How can a single species undo centuries of our power? Another, older and wiser, leaned forward, his voice low. You do not understand. This is not just war. This is vengeance. The humans are fighting with something we have forgotten, rage that will not die. The chamber fell silent. For the first time, even the lords of the Empire had no answer. In the throne room, the Emperor listened. He was a towering figure draped in golden armor, his crown forged from the metals of conquered worlds. But his eyes were dark, his jaw clenched. Report after report was read before him. Fleets destroyed, colonies lost, supplies cut. Everywhere the humans struck, the Empire bled. At last, he rose from his throne, his voice thundering through the hall. Enough! We are the Korath. We are the Fire of the Stars. We will not bow to insects. His generals knelt, trembling. My Emperor, one said carefully, we sent fleets of 30, fleets of 50, and still they fall. Humanity fights with weapons we do not understand. Their ships vanish into shadows. Their missiles pierce our shields. They do not fight like others. They fight like predators. The Emperor's teeth ground together. Then we will drown them in numbers, prepare the armada. While the Empire plotted, fear spread among its people. On border worlds, merchants closed their markets. Terrified human ships might appear. In slave camps, whispers of humanity became sparks of rebellion. Slaves began to believe their masters could bleed. Even soldiers of the Empire hesitated, their hands trembling when scanning the dark void, afraid of ships that appeared and vanished like ghosts. The humans had become more than an enemy. They had become a legend. On the Iron Vow, Captain Mara studied the data. Her crew sat in tense silence as a massive hologram filled the command deck. The Armada. Hundreds of enemy warships, larger and deadlier than anything humanity had faced, moving like a tidal wave across the stars. Her officers exchanged worried glances. We can't fight that, one whispered. They'll crush us with sheer size. Mara's face was calm, but her eyes burned. Size doesn't win wars, she said. Fear does. And right now, they fear us. Her words struck deep. The crew straightened, resolve hardening. In the Sol system, Admiral Raines prepared his strategy. Dozens of human fleets gathered, silent giants forged from Earth's rage. Each one carried new weapons, cloaking fields, hyper-rail cannons, torpedoes that bent around shields. Standing before his officers, Raines spoke. "The Armada is coming. They think their numbers will break us. They think their fire will end us. But they do not understand." He paused, letting silence fill the room. "We are not fighting to survive. We are fighting to make sure no one ever dares to bring us fire again." His voice grew sharper. "They brought us hell. Now we show them what comes after hell." The chamber erupted with shouts of defiance. Humanity was ready. Meanwhile, in the palaces of Teralis, cracks formed within the empire itself. Some nobles whispered that the emperor was a fool, that his arrogance had blinded him. Others wondered if siding with humans would save them from destruction. Even the common people, once loyal through fear, now looked at the sky with doubt. The very foundation of the empire was shaking, not from battles alone, but from the idea that humans could not be stopped. But the emperor was not finished. As the Armada prepared to launch, he raised his voice across the empire in a galaxy-wide broadcast. "Citizens of the Korath," he thundered. "These humans are nothing. They are sparks against the sun. Tomorrow, our Armada will erase them from history. Their name will vanish and our rule will stand eternal." The people cheered, but their eyes were filled with doubt. Because in their hearts, they remembered the whispers. "The humans are coming." On the Iron Vow, Mara watched the Emperor's broadcast. Her lips curled into a cold smile. "Let him promise victory," she said softly. "Tomorrow we will show him the truth." Her crew stood silent behind her, their faces pale but determined. They knew the storm ahead would be like nothing they had faced before. But they also knew this. Humanity had already done the impossible. And, as the Armada moved and the galaxy held its breath, one thought burned in every human heart. The Korath had brought them hell. Now it was time to answer with something far worse. The stars trembled with war. From the black void, the Korath Armada advanced. Hundreds of warships moving in flawless formation, their engines burning like suns. The Emperor had sent everything. Dreadnoughts, carriers, destroyers, fleets, larger than any seen in generations. Their purpose was simple: erase humanity. On the other side, hidden in the shadows, the human fleets waited. Ships forged in grief and rage, cloaked in silence, bristling with weapons the galaxy had never witnessed. The galaxy itself seemed to hold its breath. Aboard the Iron Vow, Captain Mara stood tall, her hands gripping the railing of the command deck. Her crew watched her, their faces pale with fear yet hard with resolve. "This is the moment," Mara said, her voice low but unshakable. "They think numbers will break us. They think fear will stop us. But they don't understand. We are not afraid. We never were." Her eyes flashed with cold fire. "Today we show them something far worse than hell." The Armada opened fire first. Thousands of beams of light ripped through the void, a storm of energy crashing forward like a tidal wave. The sky burned white. The shock shook entire planets. But when the light cleared, the human fleets were gone. The Korath commanders blinked, confused. Then one by one their ships began to vanish in fire. Human vessels had slipped behind them, into their blind spots, striking like wolves tearing apart a herd. Railguns tore through shields, missiles cut ships in half. Dreadnoughts that had stood for centuries crumbled in seconds. The Armada turned in panic, but the humans were already gone, cloaked in shadow, striking again from another angle. It was not a battle. It was a slaughter. On the Korath flagship, alarms screamed. The Admiral shouted orders, his scaled face pale with disbelief. "They're everywhere. Find them. Crush them." But his officers knew the truth. They weren't fighting soldiers. They were fighting ghosts. On the Resolute-class flagship, Admiral Raines gave the final order. "Release the Revenant." Across the battlefield, Massive human warships revealed their secret. Panels slid open. Weapons unlike anything ever seen emerged, glowing with deadly light. The revenant cannons fired. Beams of energy twisted space itself, bending through shields, ripping apart ships from the inside. Entire formations of the Armada exploded in silence, their wreckage drifting lifeless. The Korath had unleashed hell on humanity, but now they saw something worse. They saw what humanity could create when pushed beyond mercy. Panic spread through the Armada. Some captains tried to flee, only to be cut down. Others begged for mercy over open channels, their voices breaking. But humanity gave no answer. On world after world, alien citizens watched the battle unfold through stolen transmissions. For the first time, they saw the Korath bleed. For the first time, they saw fear in the eyes of their conquerors. And, in that moment, something greater than victory began. Hope. The Korath Emperor watched from his throne as the reports came in. Fleet after fleet destroyed. His mighty armada shattered. His voice shook with rage. Impossible. Humans are nothing. Nothing. But deep in his heart, he knew the truth. He had brought them fire. He had given them a reason. And humans had answered with something far worse. As the last of the Armada fell, humanity broadcast their message across the galaxy. It was Captain Mara's voice, carried on every channel, into every system. Empire of Korath, you brought us hell. You burned our homes, our worlds, our families, and you thought that would break us. But hear this. You only awakened us. You only taught us how to fight without fear. And now, you will never forget us. Her words cut through the void like a blade. Humanity does not bow. Humanity does not forgive. And when you bring us fire, we answer with storms. We are the worst thing you could have created. Because we are united, and we are coming, the Okao. Broadcast ended. On alien worlds, silence lingered, followed by whispers. The humans won. The Empire can bleed. They are no longer weak. They are no longer prey. The galaxy had changed. On the deck of the Iron Vow, Mara stood with her crew. Their ship was scarred, their weapons drained, their bodies weary. But they were alive. She looked out at the battlefield, where wreckage of the Armada drifted like broken statues. She whispered softly, for herself and for all who had died. They brought us fire, and we answered. The galaxy would never be the same again. The humans were no longer survivors. They were the storm, and the Korath, once feared as the masters of hell, would forever remember the day they met something far worse.